For today's video, we are again going to be continuing our series for September Suicide Prevention Month, and today we're going to talk about safety plans. So safety plans are commonly used for people who are suicidal or have strong urges to hurt themselves. They're meant to help you learn some of the warning signs when a crisis is coming on and help you to kind of have a plan on what to do and how to get yourself some help before things get too bad. I've had to fill out a lot of safety plans every time I go to the hospital before I leave. They have me fill out another one. They're all basically the same. But we're going to go through the 7 steps of safety plans, and I will share mine so that way there's kind of a guide of kind of how to make your own. So the first step in filling out a safety plan is to list the triggers or warning signs. So these are things that have maybe caused you to want to hurt or kill yourself in the past, or some things that usually happen when you're getting worse. So for me, this is things like not sleeping. So when I am starting to feel more suicidal and things are getting worse and getting a little bit less under my control, the first thing that tends to happen to me is I don't sleep very well. I have nightmares or I just can't fall asleep. I wake up in the middle of the night throughout the night. And that's kind of the first thing that happens. Another thing is I start to eat less because I start to feel a lot more depressed and a lot more unmotivated. So I lose my appetite and I end up not eating. And then another thing that happens is I have a harder time resisting self-harm urges. So I have pretty high self-harm urges a lot of the times, but once I'm starting to feel more depressed, I kind of lose my ability to resist those. So a lot of the times I'm able to remind myself, like, even though I really want to do this, I know it's not the effective choice. I know that it would, make my friends sad. I know that, my therapist has taught me other skills I can use instead. So I can kind of rationalize and kind of think my way out of acting on self-harm urges. And once I start to feel more suicidal and more depressed, I kind of adopt the attitude of, what's the point? Like, it doesn't matter if I do this or not, so I'm going to just do it anyways. So once I start thinking like that, that's another pretty big sign that I'm starting to get a little bit worse. So the next part of a safety plan is to list some coping skills and distractions. So these are things that you can do on your own in order to reduce the emotional intensity of your current situation. For me, the biggest thing that I use as a distraction is playing video games. I've lately been playing a lot of Pokemon Unite. So if I am feeling really down, feeling like I, want to do something to hurt myself, I can pick up my Switch and I can play some games and try to distract myself that way. For coping skills, I use ice packs. I find cold temperatures to be one of the most helpful things for me, especially for self-harm urges, and also for suicide urges. So the cold feeling, I usually put an ice pack on my face or the insides of my wrists, and that helps kind of lower my emotional intensity and bring me back down a little bit and helps me to think a little bit more clearly. Another thing I like to use is exercise, increasing your heart rate, kind of getting moving. All those things just kind of help me feel a little bit less activated. And another thing about exercise and a little bit about ice packs is if I am really thinking about doing something to hurt myself, exercise is kind of painful. So I'm sort of not fully giving into that desire, but I'm sort of meeting that desire a little bit by doing something that is kind of painful, but is not bad for me. And those things also help distract me from my suicidal thoughts a lot of the times. The third thing is to list some social settings where you can temporarily go to avoid being alone. I have a hard time with this because I like to isolate, as do I think a lot of people when they get depressed or when they get suicidal. Isolating becomes really, really easy to do, but is also pretty dangerous. So some of the things or places that I would go, I would maybe go sit at a coffee shop, get myself a coffee, something to eat maybe, and just kind of sit there. So I'm out in a public space, bring a book, bring my phone, do something to then combine some distractions with being in a public social place where I know I'm not going to act on any urges to hurt myself. And another thing I'll do is take my dog for a walk. So this is For me, this one's kind of a little weird because it's sort of like I'm still alone, but I have my dog, so I'm not really alone. And like I wouldn't do anything to hurt myself while I had my dog with me because I need to make sure my dog gets home safely. So going out, getting out of the house with my dog and, walking around a little bit is another place that I can go that makes me feel a little bit less alone. Step 4 is where you list supportive people in your life. So this is friends or family that you can ask for help. For me, I have my husband and I have a few of my friends. And one of the most important things to do with this is to have those numbers somewhere that they're easily accessible. I think a lot of people have smartphones, have phone numbers saved, so that's easy, that's great. I actually have a little note in my notes app on my phone that is just the list of, I think there's 3 people on there that I can call when I am feeling really down or feeling really suicidal. So just having that somewhere that I can see is a good reminder for me to go to my supportive people when I am feeling really badly. Step 5 is to list some professionals. So these are people that you would contact when you are definitely in a crisis, or are leading up to a crisis. For me, this is my therapist. I keep my therapist's business card in every purse that I have. I keep one of his business cards in like different rooms in my house. I actually have one sitting next to me on my desk currently. So I know his phone number, but I keep those cards around as a way to remind myself that I can ask him for help before things get really bad, or if things are already really bad, I can still call him, text him, and do something to ask him for help, and he's going to help me to assess whether this is something we can work through together or if this is something that I need to go to the hospital for. So step 6 talks about having a safe environment. So this is when you want to kind of look around the area that you are in most of the time and see if there are some ways to make this more safe for you. For me, I have all of my medications in a safe that only my husband knows the combination to, so I cannot access them, and we do not keep any sharp objects out around the house. And these are some things I had to remove from my environment in order to make it a little bit safer for me. Another thing that I do is I keep mints, warheads, and gum in various places throughout my house. And this is because I use mints, warheads, or gum as a distraction when I'm feeling really down and really suicidal. So the warheads work the best. They're extremely sour. So something like that really helps me kind of get out of my head a little bit and get a little bit more into my body and helps me think a little bit clearer. So having those all around my house, so that way, like no matter what room I'm in, there's something that I can use there. That's been extremely helpful for me too. And the 7th and final step in a safety plan is to list your reasons for living. So this is where you want to list things that motivate you to stay alive. For me, that list is kind of short, but that's okay because I still have a list, and that those things that I have listed there would be my dog, my friends, and my therapist. And then so those would be like the things that I have, the people in my life that make me feel like I should stay alive. And then another thing that I usually list is my goal to continue to help and educate others. So I run a support group currently, and that's a big reason for living for me because I love meeting with those people and helping them, and they help me so much too. And I love making videos. I love educating on mental health topics because I think it's something that really needs to be talked about more. So that is another reason for living for me, is just being able to continue to educate and to help people as much as I possibly can. So if you're interested in doing a safety plan, you can just Google them and you can find a template online. I recommend doing them and then going over it with a therapist. That can be really helpful just so someone else knows that you have this safety plan. And it's also really good to, when you list friends and family that you can go to for help, it's good to let them know like, hey, I'm making a safety plan for when I feel really down or really suicidal, and I'm going to put you on that as someone that I can call for support. Is that okay? So it's good to talk about your safety plan with other people. And another really good thing to do when you make a safety plan is to keep it somewhere where you can see it. So I keep one in my office that I can look at to just kind of remind myself of that process, because in the moment when you're feeling really bad and you're feeling really suicidal, you're probably not going to go, oh, let me go look for my safety plan. So having it somewhere that you can see it and that you can easily access it is really important. And that is pretty much it for today's video. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments and I will do my best to answer them. And thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.